Hello. This is episode 605, Black and Blue. I am the director and producer, Melissa Bernstein.
Hi there. I'm Rich Sickler. I'm the first assistant director and Mohawk Man in one of the scenes that appear on screen as well.
And I'm Clementine Dunnell. I am Melissa's assistant.
Clementine was with us every day because the way we structure it on Better Call Saul, Trina Siopi is usually on set, but because I was on set, she was in prep. And so Clementine stepped into Trina's giant shoes and was with us every single day, looking at every detail in every frame. We were very lucky to have her.
Absolutely.
Shucks.
I was going to say, I love that very first image because you don't think for a second that it's going to be anything but making the old school drugs, you know. Matt Cradle did an amazing job with all these images, I thought.
An amazing job. And the crazy mad scientist, Rich Sickler, set it up so that we were shooting this at the same time as we were shooting the boxing match that you'll see later, which I think people couldn't really believe that we were doing those two things at the same time.
Yeah.
But we just about
one's
pulled
in
it off.
Germany, for instance.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was a lot of running around.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, also a very fun piece of music that we have here. That wonderful Thomas Golubic found for us. And Thomas was actually nominated for an Emmy with this episode was his submission. So that was also quite an honor.
Mm-hmm.
And the music is Pink Martini and the Von Trapps in Stiller Nacht. Although my German accent is probably not what it should be.
So great.
Yeah.
There's just no reason that should be happening. And then we'll find out why.
And our wildly degraded main titles.
Mm-hmm.
Never know which one you're going to get. So fun.
I love that shot.
And I remember sitting in that set of Kim's room with Marshall trying to find reflective surfaces that might yield that shot. And the 317 that if you look at the reflection looks like lie. Because Kim is perhaps wrestling with her conscience a little bit here.
Mm.
And also pretty scared.
Yeah.
Given what she knows and what Jimmy doesn't know.
That's the beauty of it, I think. The kind of vulnerability of, especially, Albuquerque, and I can say this because I'm originally from there, Albuquerque has an edge just kind of to begin with. And to know that someone out there is lurking, someone so formidable and sleek and clever.
And someone that won't seem to die.
Yeah.
And this was a scene when I started doing my homework for it, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, she's literally in every corner of the room. I was like, it's going to take 115 shots to do this.
Yeah. I will, speaking of two things, mad scientists and homework, I would say that Marshall himself, he would never admit it, but just the brains behind some of his mad science work is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And for you, Melissa, your homework, I was so happy to be your first AD the very first time you directed, and glad it lined up this time as well. And so much respect for how deep you go into story and visuals and all the elements for prep. So it was a pleasure.
Oh, well, I mean, I could go to those places because I knew you had my back in every other way. So I didn't have to panic about everything. I could focus on that. And also many thanks to my husband, Jordan Slovin, who sits with me late at night and does this homework with me, even though it causes, temporary rifts in our marriage. But they fade into the background as the years go by. It's good.
I think it's pretty telling that there's that she's smoking inside, and there's a beer bottle that wasn't either thrown in the parking lot, which was an episode I also did, or disposed of.
I love that point. We made so much of the fact that, like, what kind of a devolution we're seeing with Kim and Jimmy by how much they're smoking inside. I love that. Yeah. That's a signal for it.
It really is. Amazing. Just to circle back a little bit, something about prep. I really miss having Clementine as part of a team that I'm part of, just because I use the term keeping all the puppies in the basket that Melissa sometimes makes fun of me for saying.
No, I love it.
But there's, Clementine is just always circling back, and I can see why you have her as your hired gun at your side at all times.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Both her attention to detail and her care for the story elements and the human beings that are working to make all this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Well, I learned from you guys.
We do learn from each other. Part of it, sure.
I love this sequence. It's like a window into, a rare window into Gus.
Yeah, I think this episode really allowed for that. There's a lot of scenes without dialogue in this episode, and a lot of insight into Gus. One of our scenes actually got cut, but who knows? Maybe it'll be available on the DVD. And I got Dave's amazing score here. Dave Porter, talent. And Gus really has to do a gear shift of, like, his sort of resentment for having to be armed and having to bring all this stuff to his day job. And then he's got to turn it all off and get out there.
Another use of reflection. That one's slightly more obvious. But these are my people. I love working with background artists just to make it seem like, so you don't notice them is the best part.
And this is a wonderful Steadicam shot.
Mm-hmm.
A wonderful Steadicam operator, Jürgen Heinemann, that we brought in for this episode because Paul was prepping elsewhere with Giancarlo for the next episode.
That's right.
Sir, I would be happy to help you here.
This was a day I loved watching Rich work.
May I take your order?
Working with all of these background artists and having them be, they're stuck in this one room doing the same thing over and over again. And Rich made it so fun for everybody. I think they all had such a good time. And I think it made the whole rest of the crew had such a good time. And that's hard to do.
Thank you.
And we tried this piece a few different ways. Because I think on the page, we weren't exactly sure how it was going to work. But we ended up with something very simple. And I think that's because Giancarlo really nailed the performance. That was, of course, Harrison Thomas, who works with us as the manager. Lyle in Los Polios.
Look at that. That's New Mexico right there, baby.
Got Jesse Ennis, who, by the way, I just rode with on a plane I was flying from Boston to LA, and she was on my plane. It was amazing. And I made my flight so much better just knowing she was on my plane. This sequence, she did, I think, the best thing that I'm actually sorry we didn't use, but she wanted to do a take where she was just yelling at these senior citizens, but like she just raised her voice because she was fearful they wouldn't hear her if she didn't raise her voice. And it made me laugh so hard. I loved it. It was a little too much for Peter Gould, which, we all have to make our choices, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Phil Palmer, our amazing sound mixer, didn't love being surprised by it, but I won't make that mistake again. Sorry, Phil. Yeah. Ouch. That must have hurt.
Howard Hamlin. Just call me Howard. And this is my co-counsel.
I love Ed Begley in this scene, too.
Oh, my gosh. His arc in this final season is just precious. I mean, you just want to hug him. You want to hug him, period. But man, to watch everything that's happening before him, really, really special.
Not because we're greedy. No. May take a little extra time.
In this wonderful group we had here. Clementine, you want to talk about Luann?
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about that. If you saw, we have Grandma Saracen from Friday Night Lights.
Right there.
And there she is. I was so starstruck.
Luann Stevens.
We're sending a message.
She was even better than I could have imagined.
Yeah, she knocked it out. She was awesome.
Both as an actress and as like a human being. Like, she's just so lovely. She took pictures with us. She accepted our fandom with grace.
Yeah, she was so great.
And Mr. Babatunde, he was amazing. Who is the other gentleman who's talking about his son and his litigiousness.
Yeah.
Which luckily Mr. Smooth Talking Hanlon talked him out of.
I've been so grateful to work with all the collective, the bingo folks in season past, and then just these wonderful folks that have been on the planet longer than us. So special.
Yeah. Another day of just sort of managing and making it fun for a room full of people. But things can get, tiresome after time. But not with Rich at the helm.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love this scene, and I very much appreciate that this one was originally set inside the car, but we moved it outside of the car, which made me very happy, and I think is a better, more cinematic setting for it, for sure. We were going to be a bit limited, and it was going to be a bit hot.
Yeah,
sitting in that car.
And I think the recurring thing of Ed's character watching the Jaguar drive away, like more helplessness, as
he looks so hopeful there for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, you're hearing me. It's going to be okay, but it's not going to be okay.
I appreciate it.
You can start today, Howard.
And I also learned that Patrick can't say Jaguar. He seems perfect, Patrick Fabian, and he's close, but he doesn't know how to say. He can't say Jaguar like other people. We all have flaws. I think if that's he's in pretty good shape. I love that. It's so sad.
Boom.
Nailed it. Oh, he slumps. He's like, we're really in for it now.
Yes.
And little does he know how very in for it we are. Okay, this is a pretty awesome music cue also from Thomas, I have to say. Wilson Phillips, I believe it's Release Me. We spent a lot of time thinking about what music Francesca listened to in her private time. at this stage in her life before Saul has ruined her for the world. And we thought she would listen to like hopeful stuff, like, that, and, stuff that she could really sing along to in the car. Look at this. Oh, wow. What a group. Oh my God. Who is that person? It's pretty crazy to be talking with this guy on screen. Oh my God. I'd be terrified if I were her.
I'm really glad you liked the 505 side head tattoo idea.
It's so perfect. It's so New Mexico. All of it. And here we are at our the office that will one day be Saul Goodman's office in Breaking Bad. We're finally to this point in the story where he's inhabiting the office, which is pretty exciting. She looks less excited.
Yeah.
The toilet.
I love how you and Marshall came up with ways to feature the toilet.
Yeah. And then I had to make sure Ray Seehorn would back off my toilet featuring shot ideas because she was there first. But I was
That's right.
No.
And I have to say another thing that Clementine really helped us manage was all the different groups of thugs and ne'er-do-wells that come and go. She made sure we didn't put the wrong person in the wrong place, in the wrong timeline, and all those other things.
Yeah. Well, we had some really amazing background artists, and, we had so many of Saul's clients throughout the season. And I mean, there were just so many great people in Albuquerque, and between background casting and costumes, they all embodied these different roles. And I remember we had poster boards with criminal inspiration on them, and it's like so much thought and care went into making those people. And then the artists just like knocked it out of the park. They were so great. It was really fun.
What if I double your salary?
My salary at the MBD or what you were paying me before?
Not so much this day, but I had to endure so much, the heat of the summer, the chill of the winter, because we're a kind of a show without seasons in a way, or we try to be, as much as possible. Exactly right. And so it's like, well, you're wearing a vest and that's it, or different things like that.
And how about we shot this episode more than a year ago? That's right? Because we shot it last summer.
Yeah.
So if things are a little foggy, you should understand that it's been a year since we shot this thing.
Over here.
More reflection.
Oh yeah, I love that shot. And this was a Rich Sickler special. This shot, your idea, a great one. That was gone, and then we figured out a way to get it back in and to make it even more prominent in the scene, and I'm so glad we did. Keiko, oh my God, I love her so much.
Yeah.
I really got to, of my favorite shows, I really got to revisit actors in them. I love Gilmore Girls, and Keiko, Jenna. I don't want to mispronounce it, but she's amazing. She's such an incredible actress and such a wonderful person to be around.
She so really
fun.
Is.
From Hawaii, like my husband. And a lot of time, Rich is spent there too.
I tried to get her on another show I was doing and it didn't quite work out.
And Friday Night Lights was one of my favorite shows. So, speaking of Luann. And then also Freaks and Geeks, which we've got somebody coming out from that. Just saying.
Oh, cool.
He seems fine, smells fine. Well, then you dodged a bullet.
This turn where she just had such a noble admiration for the direction that Kim is going. You know what I mean? It's really something. Kim has to endure, I think, a fair amount of that. This season where, her meeting with Ed, where, in the other episode where her ideas are great. And it's going to go forward, but it was all a ruse.
Yeah, I think this scene is a real low point, really, for Kim, in that like she's scamming someone that like she really likes and who really admires her and who is genuinely expressing their admiration. It's a really, and she just like lets it all go by and still gets the information she needs in order to propel their scam forward.
That piece of plastic was a last-minute ad there on the fence.
That was great. It's key. Really. And I love this. I love this location. I love the way the address is.
Yeah.
That's how it is. I thought it was so fantastic.
Okay, great work.
And I love this shot, how Marshall lined it up. I mean, he like found that reflection, which I love, of Jimmy in the door, which I love so much.
Yeah.
So great. And like that's why we just like can stay in this shot, because it's so beautiful to look at. And here we are with Steve Banos, who is from Freaks and Geeks, another one of my favorite shows. And he did such a great job. Some people thought that was Tom Schnauz, but it's not.
Tom wishes.
It's true. It's true.
This location was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, how about what it looked like when we got there? Did not look like this.
That's for sure.
It was like an art space. And like dancing, right? And like for events.
Yeah, kind of an event space, yeah. And in fact, we had to kind of dance around their schedule a little bit and couldn't use this room for a certain thing and couldn't store things over there for a time and whatnot.
I'm tired, Jimmy.
But this is where, as Rich engineered it, the teaser is being shot in the next room.
Dead serious. Hoping you might get it out of your system.
And a lot of thought was put into the height of the boxing ring and, making sure that the space was utilized really well. I think the Ashley and the set deck team just pulled this together with, so well.
Yeah, Ashley Marsh is a genius. Very lucky to have her.
Mm-hmm. And the whole, all the crews that come and go behind the scenes.
All roads lead back.
Yeah.
Ahead of us and behind us.
And Denise Pizzini, our production designer, really advocated for this space. Like we looked at a ton of gyms.
We did.
And she's like, that it's not going to give you what you want for the scene. And so you can see a train going by in the background.
Yeah,
it's a real
right.
train. I loved that train went by. It felt so right for the location.
I don't remember it in the sound. Did we enhance it at all, or
no? We were able to use it.
No, that's so great.
That was like I had Skip McDonald, the editor of the episode, who's incredibly talented. I had very few notes from him, but I was like, "Find the train. We need the train." And then he looked and he's like, "Oh yes, actually, Neil's notes. There's like train. Melissa loves train."
It's funny, the simple sentences in our notes. I can't read mine sometimes after meetings and stuff. I'm like, I wonder what that means.
Yeah. How about your notes, Rich? What is you want to tell people your system here, your notebook system?
It's silly. Same thing for decades, basically. Same type of pencil, sharpened. And I just don't ever tear the pages out. I just highlight it and fold it over. So if I ever have to go back to it years later, I have it all. What a kind of a goofball for all the details. But
I love it.
There's some I guess value to a tiny little bit of OCD as a first AD.
Just a little. He doesn't ever. We don't have to kick little rocks into their faces ever for him. It's fine. This is another amazing song that Tom Skuljevich, Emmy nominee, found. a Cafe Granada from Kalal, a flamenco kind of vibe, which we thought was kind of fun, like a little bullfighter thing going on here.
Definitely. And do you want to talk about your technical advisor?
Oh my God, such a great, Luis Moncada was our, what is his actual title here? It's like, he's like a fight coordinator, right? That I had worked with. Luis obviously is one of our cousins, and he's terrifying in that way. But over the years, I, worked with him, like, to teach me how to fight and to exercise with him, actually. And mostly because he's like, you need to do this. Let's do this. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And working with him, I realized just what an amazing sense of rhythm and movement he has. And as soon as I read this, I was like, oh my God, it would be so perfect to have Luis involved. And I mentioned it to Al Goto because it's obviously his call, and he was on board immediately. And it was such a joy to have Luis down there working with the actors and really keeping us honest about what inexperienced fighters would be doing in terms of their stance, in terms of the way they would move their bodies, the way they wouldn't move their bodies. That was so awesome. I love that. And Al did such a great job too. You realize how much a stunt coordinator brings to the way a sequence comes together. It's not just safety and making the stunt happen, but like the shots. Like he knows so much. I got a whole new. I already loved him and held him in such high esteem, but I think my understanding of what he does became so much more clear.
That's a just not to drag it on, but yeah, it's a good point, because if you, in editorial, they have to make transition points during the fight in case you need to shorten it in editing and stuff. And so having a really knowledgeable kind of construct that way is helpful.
Yeah, and he came up with the stomping of the foot where Jimmy steps on Helen's foot. It's so great. I loved it so much. And we were afraid it wasn't going to play, but I think it does.
Yeah, it's like old school, like more street than. I love that old Buick.
Oh, I do too. I love that car so much.
Oh my gosh. It was, I have to say, like, we said goodbye to a lot of things this season, and this apartment complex, it had a little, there's a little sadness to say goodbye to this place.
Yeah. And this sequence, I definitely was leaning on Michael Morris's work in a previous episode. Where these guys were dropping the bottles, like Rich said earlier. This is a different kind of scene, but it's an extension of this relationship between these characters and this space.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? Put the ice.
I love this too. I love the choices that Bob made in this scene, like where he's in the mirror. Like he just, like he's telling a very Jimmy Bull story there.
I fight for you. How'd it go with you?
Yeah, this set, it's because obviously the exterior is on location, and then, just to come into this space. It was kind of our safe home for most of the seasons, and then once Lalo visited, that this set seemed to change a little bit, I would say.
Oh, and how about Clementine? You want to talk about who's in this magazine here?
We've got right there's Jennifer Bryan, our costume designer, as a lawyer or a judge, I can't remember. And then the corner below that is Steve Latecki, our gaffer. And they played esteemed legal persons within the Albuquerque field. It was nice to dress them up. Seeing Steve in a suit was something.
Worth everything.
Yeah, it was worth
He
it.
cleans up good.
Yeah.
At least he didn't have to put his size 16 shoes into dress shoes, I hope.
That's right. Yeah. Waist up.
This was like one of our longer days. But we got it. We got through it. And I love this scene so much.
Yeah.
It just should, them being sort of self-aware about what havoc they're going to cause. Because
Right.
usually they're so busy sort of plotting and like not feeling it. In this moment, I feel like they're really actually cognizant of what they're getting into.
And then the secret knowledge that she's holding.
Opening shot, I think, in the incredible Eli Schneider. His amazing work on the dolly. He's such a talented guy. And
Yes.
he just, that's another, we're having a long day. And he just nailed what was, I think, a complicated shot again and again. This is fun. This was Jordan, my husband's idea. Which I told to Marshall, and he was like, "What?" And then he was like, "Oh no, yes."
Right.
And it worked.
For me, in the understanding kind of the connection between the two houses, the way you put all this together, I thought as a viewer really helped me understand it more than it was a little mysterious to me in the previous episode, if I'm candid.
Yeah, it's tricky. All of a sudden, we're suggesting that there's a tunnel between these houses, and we're kind of immersing ourselves in Gus's neighborhood. And we haven't been there, for years, but really since Breaking Bad in a meaningful way.
Right.
And it will only become more important in the coming episodes.
By the way, the lady who actually lives in this house taught history in high school to my older siblings in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Highland High School.
I love that. And in the next door house, in Gus's house, the woman that owns that house used to use Paula Del Santo as her babysitter. And Paula was our art director for years and years, not this particular season, but she's still in our family and someone I love and admire. And that's just what you're saying is just like how the kind of community Albuquerque is.
Yeah. And we as a show, and of course Breaking Bad, which I didn't have the great pleasure of working on, but it's woven into it, into the fabric.
Wherever he is now, sooner or later, he's going
And this is a set that was, it's so seamless the way you shot it and cut it together. But this is a set on stage that we shot, I'm going to say, weeks and weeks later, it seems like.
I think, it sure was. Yeah, the art department did such a great job, and Steve Brown and the construction department putting this together on this stage so that we could shoot a small bathroom, but tell this story efficiently and artfully, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And leading into this, we had Howard Ferguson, who played Arthur, one of Mike's guys, the one who's like watching Gus on his TV monitor, scrubbing the ground.
Yeah.
I love him. He does such a great job.
Right. It's just confident and ready, it seems.
Yeah. And here we are back in the super pit, which Diane Mercer calls it. And I love hearing her say it. So
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not as familiar, obviously, with the different times we've seen it, but that was a pretty unique shot, I think, to see it opening from within,
Yeah, it kind of felt otherworldly somehow, which is appropriate, but I don't think, we hadn't been here for a while. So nice way to come back to it.
Yes.
And this was another scene we shot weeks and weeks after the fact. Right, Rich?
Yes. Yeah, it had to marry once the set was ready and everything. I was going to say the sound is such a huge part of that kind of industrial feel because it's really an effects guy and me going slower, slower, over the walkie. Okay, lift it up. And they're going, pulleys and stuff with a rope.
I'll be upstairs.
I've often thought how neat it would be to show the shot often, but then just widen out the camera, make the camera have a wider view by 2 or 3 feet just to see what everybody else is doing around the edges,
Yeah, and I think in this set, that would be particularly revealing because it's what we present on camera so different, I think, from the actual experience of being in it.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting tells so much of the story. I mean, what Marshall and Steve do here.
It's absolutely underground.
And this is another one of those scenes where we're in Gus's head, and I love it so much. And that's why that scene I said got cut, is because we actually ended up telling all the story in this one scene instead of going back with him to his house. That's the scene that got cut, is after he sort of figured out this plan. Like he finally has his, what if Lalo makes it to this sacred space? He has a plan for that, and then he can finally kind of rest again.
Right.
But he tells us all of that wordlessly in this one scene. I love that shot too. That was a big camera shot. It was beautiful. And this we had to delay it because, as Rich said, the set wasn't ready, but also because of what's coming up in episode 8, we had to work like hand in hand with Vince and Gordon, who wrote it, to figure out, to make sure that we were setting that final sequence with Lalo up properly.
Yeah.
And that he could live with the choices we were making.
Totally.
In our day.
A term that I don't know if other industries use it, but that we use all the time is reverse engineering. And that's exactly this, because the endpoint we have to make sure that the trail to the endpoint makes sense. And that's another thing, and not to keep saying it, but that's another thing Clementine does. It just keeps us moving forward in that way.
And this was, and on the page initially, this was like pretty short, if I recall. And then we're like, wait, what do you need? What track do you need us to lay? And it got, and then Allison went back in there and was like, okay, I will rewrite that with all that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this, the way that we get to have him go out, and I love that. And that's that's all Marshall. So great.
Where the lights go out, but there's still that little kiss of like.
Yeah. It's so dramatic. And I didn't think Peter would let us do it, actually. I thought he'd be like, no. But he did. I was so excited it stayed in. These two are wonderful. Marlies Bell and Carter Glade, who speak German, obviously, in real life. English. They're English, obviously. Probably their first language, and perfect as well. They're just wonderful actors. And here's the wonderful Andrea Such. This was a tricky role to cast, because we had to figure out who Werner was married to and who was on the other end of the phone, when he met his end.
Right.
No, New Mexico.
And then we have to introduce this guy into her life.
I mean, it's like California, just less traffic. Thank you.
I thought it was smart to show the quiz game in another line. That was just tells you right away that you're somewhere else. You didn't have to wait to hear it. To see it also in written form.
Yeah, that was we were trying to figure out how to give those cues, and That was a fun thing about the way the scene was written, that we could use that to game that way. And this was this is a restaurant in a hotel in Albuquerque that actually I know Al's always told me he loves, but it was closed for the pandemic. So it was, we'd never been able to shoot in it, but we were able to because they hadn't opened back up. So we were able to take advantage of that. And we're bringing Lalo back in this scene. We hadn't seen him for since episode 1, right? You guys sent him off in that truck at the end of episode 1.
That's right.
And then this is where
a couple of times, by the way.
Yes.
There. Always wanted to go visit there.
So that was kind of fun. We got to do his this sort of debonair businessman version of Lalo.
International man of mystery.
He's left-handed, you know.
Oh, I always got that wrong. Nobody ever remembered. Rich would never let us forget any of these very important details about our actors, players. Never.
Yeah. With we could talk about everything, right? Like, there's nothing secret about the whole season, right?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, with Howard's demise, that was a very big point. If he was right-handed, that would have been a whole different scene, you know? So.
Indeed. It's important.
Okay, that's the last time I remember mentioning it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's likely.
Lawyers came to my house.
And I love
it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I just love the
Lawyers.
The flirting, you know, that goes on, the connection that goes on between them. Like, I really did like to feel like there could have been some kind of genuine feelings coming out of these conversations.
Yeah.
All the boxes of folders, his papers.
She's lovely.
Why do I need
that stuff? So talented. She brought so much. She was so prepared. It was a lot of dialogue for her too, and she just, there's so much warmth and sadness that the character is dealing with, but like you just totally believed that she was a woman trying to find her way in the world after she'd lost her soulmate.
Right.
And what would you do if this debonair man landed next to you at a bar? I liked to ponder that.
That is... It's just not right.
Yeah, to kind of, I'm really excited to talk about the house that, her house.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were the one that had the vision. We were all going, really, that one? And you stuck with it.
Oh, yeah, here we are at that house.
Yeah.
We had to find something that could be Germany, Germany in Albuquerque. Something that really felt like it was unusual too, because Werner was this sort of engineer, like this sort of purist, this design purist kind of person too. Mm-hmm. It was like, what would his home space be? And then as we discovered Margareta, what would their home space be together? And yeah, I do love brutalist architecture, like that, and not that that's exactly what this is, but I love that kind of vibe. And this house, which is really two houses that the owner is split into two, is right. It was like he had his sister in one half of it, which is kind of
right, yeah.
And we used both. I mean, we used both sides of it. We used the
just the upstairs and the back. Yeah, that's right.
And the upstairs, the office in the back, and then the living space and front door and everything in the front. That was very efficient, I think, right?
Yes, oh yeah. I love how we see what he is when she's not looking.
Yeah.
Tony
And
played it so well.
And how dangerous he looks.
This is a lock off, which can be challenging. In other words, we lock the camera, keep it exactly still. And instead of going night into morning, it was sunset into night, and then reverse the process. Look at that. A little Frusenglagen in the distance there. Come on. Come on, guys.
Yeah, we have our amazing visual effects team and Diane Mercer's incredible supervision of all of it. The rodeo, they're heroes. And Alejandro was with us that evening.
Yes.
And that was one of those days that looked like it was going to be awful for the crew. And then it wasn't. Rich made it like a really nice, shorter evening, actually, where we got everything we needed. And then people got to go home. And we missed it, but the 2 gents on bikes, Rich, I think that those were your picks.
Oh, right. Lou Lonnie was our second AD. He's actually on the show that I'm working on right now. I brought him to Georgia, but man, he is just top shelf. One of the best. And then Matty Fate, a great on-set prop master, was the other guy riding the scooter in that dissolve shot.
And somebody I've been working with since Breaking Bad and adore. Little Bear. That dog is named after Diane's dog. Diane Mercer. So that's a nod to them. And then this beautiful house. Yeah, I love the what Ashley Marsh and her team did. It's so like mid-century Danish, European, eclectic, warm, lived in kind of a thing. And then this is when we were in the back house. And I love all the beautiful reflections.
You just think that when that dog's barking that's going to be its end, but no, he just charms the dog instead.
And here we have Werner's office space, which is like also something I know Peter is very concerned that like we would find a way for it to reflect that character. I think we have some great pictures of Andrea Such. She's so beautiful. There's beautiful pictures of her through the years here.
And the gaps in those binders indicate that, their version of the feds or whatever came in and took those documents. So there's no way to trace it.
Yeah, so he's realizing, the good stuff is probably gone.
Yeah.
But and that prop right there, I mean, the team put their pages and pages in German. It's an incredible level of detail. I love that. That's like some of the most humanity we see from Lala, where he's like, oh no, now I have to kill her too. And he seems like he's actually regrets it. He seems sad.
Oh, where's that little scoundrel going?
Little bear.
Yeah.
And the tension building. And now the music is dropped out, which is such I think a bold choice that I really like. Instead of scoring all of this, Dave Porter's his instincts were really to play this part dry, and I love that.
Makes us be it's like we're there.
Yeah.
He's heard that term, I think, in conversation.
Ooh, a little familiar. I love this shot.
Yeah,
Marshall.
so special.
Yeah, so great.
Wonder where that was made.
And then we went back and forth, like, you're seeing a sticker on the bottom of that statue that gives Lalo just enough information that he can get out of there without murdering her. But you don't quite know what his calculations are. And
her first instinct is to check her bedroom, of course.
Yeah.
She hasn't probably stepped foot in Werner's office for who knows.
It's the last place she wants to go.
Yeah.
And then, but here she is. What? Nothing.
Oh, phew. A
You.
little odd, I'd say, that a window's open, though.
Especially since she hasn't been in there for some time.
Yeah.
Love how this is like a bookend shot from the cabinet that gets opened in the teaser. And that was something that Marshall has this amazing program that he figures things out like that. He builds it in his computer. I love that. Full circle.
Yay. And she lives.
Yeah.
And now you just wonder what the heck he's up to after getting that little tidbit of information. So great.
Yeah. And so surprising that she does actually not die. That's the biggest surprise of the whole episode.